In networking, everything ultimately comes down to messages. Networks do not move files. They do not move videos. They move messages. Everything that happens on a network is expressed through messages. A message is the fundamental unit of communication exchanged between endpoints over a network. It represents an intentional transfer of information from one endpoint to another. That information might be data, a request, a response, a command, or a signal. But regardless of purpose, it exists to convey meaning. If endpoints are the participants in a network, messages are the words they use to communicate. To understand networking, you must understand messages. So, what is message in networking? At its core, a message is how information is packaged, sent, received, and interpreted across a network. But a message is never just raw content. It also includes structure and context. A message must carry enough information for the receiving endpoint to understand what the content means and how to process it. This is why messages are shaped by protocols. Protocols define how messages are formatted, how they are structured, and how they are interpreted. Without shared rules, messages would arrive as noise. With protocols, messages become meaningful communication. Think of a message like a letter sent through a postal system. A letter is not just the words written inside it. It also has an envelope with an address, a return address, and sometimes special instructions like priority delivery or signature confirmation. In networking, messages work the same way. They contain payloads, the actual information being sent, and headers that provide context about where the message is going, where it came from, and how it should be handled. The sender prepares the message according to protocol rules. The network moves it without understanding its contents, and the receiver opens it, interprets it, and decides what it means. The network's role is transport, not interpretation. You may wonder, how does this thing work? A message is created by an endpoint according to a protocol. The protocol defines the message's structure and how it should be interpreted. The message is then handed to the network, which transports it toward its destination. Along the way, the network may break the message into smaller units for more efficient transmission. It may route those units across different paths. It may delay them, reorder them, or in some cases, lose some of them entirely. At the destination, the receiving endpoint reconstructs the message and interprets it using the same protocol rules. From the perspective of the application, the message feels whole and complete. From the perspective of the network, it may be managed in pieces, fragmented, transmitted separately, and reassembled. This separation allows networks to scale and adapt without exposing complexity to endpoints. Messages are also directional. They always flow from a sender to a receiver, even if that receiver later sends a response. Some messages request action, others respond to requests. Some signal status, errors, or changes in state. Network behavior emerges from how these messages flow, interact, and trigger reactions. Why messages matter? Because messages are the boundary between endpoints and the network. They define what the network is responsible for and what it is not. The network is responsible for delivering messages from source to destination according to agreed rules. Endpoints are responsible for deciding what messages mean and what actions to take in response. This separation is fundamental. It allows many different applications to share the same network without interfering with each other. A video call, a file download, and a database query can all coexist on the same network because they all speak the same underlying language, messages. This separation also allows networks to scale. The network does not need to understand application logic. It only needs to move messages reliably and efficiently. Understanding messages also helps explain why networking problems appear the way they do. Delays, duplicates, timeouts, missing responses. These are not mysterious failures. They are all consequences of message behavior. Messages that arrive late, arrive twice, or never arrive at all. Messages have several defining characteristics that shape how networks behave. First, messages are structured. The header tells the network and the receiver how to handle the message, where it's going, what protocol it follows, what kind of message it is. The payload carries the actual information being communicated. Second, messages are discrete. Each message represents a single communication intent, even if it's fragmented during transport. A message is a complete unit of meaning, not a continuous stream. Third, messages are transient. They exist only long enough to be transmitted and processed. Once delivered and handled, a message disappears. Networks do not store conversations by default. They facilitate exchange and then move on. Fourth, messages are governed by expectations. Senders expect delivery within some time frame. Receivers expect messages to follow protocol rules. When expectations are violated, when messages are lost, delayed, or corrupted, failures trigger retries, timeouts, or error handling. This is why timing matters so much in networking. A message that arrives late may be useless. A message that arrives twice may cause errors. A message that never arrives may trigger cascading failures. Because networks operate on messages, network behavior is entirely shaped by how messages flow, accumulate, succeed, or fail. Congestion occurs when too many messages compete for limited capacity. Latency is experienced when messages are delayed in transit. Reliability mechanisms exist because messages can be lost. Ordering mechanisms exist because messages can arrive out of sequence. Security controls exist because messages can be intercepted, altered, or forged. Once you view networking through the lens of messages, many complex behaviors become easier to understand. Networks are not mysterious systems. They are message-handling machines operating under constraints. In modern systems, messages are everywhere. Web requests, API calls, database queries, streaming updates, control signals. They may look different at the surface, but underneath, they all follow the same principle: structured information moving from one endpoint to another. Understanding messages means understanding why retries happen, why acknowledgements exist, why timeouts matter. All of these behaviors exist because networks deal with messages that may succeed, fail, or arrive unpredictably. Messages are not just a detail of networking. They are the foundation. They are how intent becomes action, how requests become responses, and how distributed systems coordinate without shared memory. When you understand messages, networking becomes clearer. You stop thinking in terms of machines and cables. You start thinking in terms of communication. Who is sending what, to whom, under which rules, and with what expectations? Because messages are the basic language networks speak.